Alright, so today I wanted to talk about this tweet by Maxime Bernier, and it's a very good one, so I was going to make a video about it. But anyways, he goes on to say the UN is pushing the line that we're going to have to accept millions of climate refugees and that we'll have no choice because, well, their bureaucrats just ruled that we don't. To hell with the UN, and he was responding to a CBC News post that said the world needs to prepare for millions of people being driven from their homes by the impact of climate change, says the UN High Commissioner for Refugees. And this is something that's a very weird issue, or I mean, not weird, but kind of very surprising because it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense that why is there going to be climate refugees? Like even if the world warms up a little bit or cools down a little bit, why does there need to be climate refugees? Like it really doesn't make any sense. But the main goal of this is just to give, at least if you ask me, it's just to give the liberals in Canada, the all the left wing governments in Europe, and depending on where the states is at, an excuse for them to need to accept mass immigration because they're not all gonna leave. Like they're not all gonna leave, but this is just another excuse to force mass immigration on the West. And the West currently is, I mean, it's basically being shoved down our throats, and the majority of people don't want it. And the only way they can get it through is to shove it down our throats, basically. Even a lot of the moderates too. Like people think that's one thing that you just can't stand about the media, especially like CBCs of the world, is that they the way that immigration is painted in the world is that the majority of people support it, but it's not true. The overwhelming majority of people don't support it. When the Trudeau government was talking about raising the immigration level from 250,000 to 350,000, which I think they did like 2 3 years ago already. It's been a while, but only 6 or 7% of people supported that. Like literally that amount of people supported it. But if you talk to the average person out there, whether it's they're afraid to voice their opinion or just sheer incompetence, which I think that's just most people, is that they perceive it that the majority of people want it. And it makes no sense. Like it's just crazy. But anyway, the other thing that I wanted to bring up too is that I'm not sure what a lot of the Wexit people's opinions is on Maxime Bernier, but at least in the time being, I mean, until there's a Wexit party, which I know they've filed the papers and whatnot, I would be voting PPC, and I would still consider even voting PPC depending on the next election. Like if the PPC had a legitimate chance to get seats, then I would vote for them because I mean, in full honesty, there's not a lot of point in voting for a party unless they have a legitimate chance of getting seats. Now, the PPC was debatable last election. I mean, they didn't get that many, but I think that was mostly because the West is so mad at done with the Liberals. But I think next election is going to be a little different because I think Canada is going to continue to slide downhill. And I mean, the West is probably more than likely still going to vote conservative across the board. But I would guess that there's going to be more people considering voting PPC. If there's a Wexit party, then that's going to crowd things a little bit more. I would be open to either one. It all depends on the platform. Personally, I would like to see the Wexit party update their platform a little bit, and it all depends on their legitimacy of getting elected too. I'd have to see the polls and whatnot. But again, the polls are biased, so it's always hard to tell. So, but anyways, getting back to this aspect, Maxime Bernier, I think, is one of the few honest politicians left in Canada, and that he's perfectly right. I mean, I made a video about it before. The UN is accusing Alberta of being racist because of their issue on pipelines, and that somehow supporting pipelines is racist, even though like everything to the left is racist. Even stuff that has nothing to do with race, it's still racist. But this is our future. Like this is one issue too that a lot of people that may or more than likely agree with me, they still believe in the idea of man-made climate change, and it's not. It's complete BS. Complete BS. Now I don't have enough time in this video to go over it, but I've made videos about it before, and if you want to go check out a guy on YouTube that's really good at debunking the idea of man-made climate change, his name's Tony Heller. You can search him up. and he'll come up. He's got about, I think, 75,000 subscribers, and he's a geologist. He's a professional. He knows what he's talking about. You can't make he's just some random guy in YouTube argument. He is a professional. And yeah, just search him up. It's Tony Heller, Heller. Best channel on YouTube, a guy that debunks the idea of climate change in my mind. But the reason why it's so important is that if we don't push back on this idea of man-made climate change, well, the UN is going to force us, and Justin Trudeau will be happy to go along with, or any left-wing government, to accept that. And that's going to be another million, 2 million, 3 million, God only knows how many um, immigrants. Again, they're going to be largely from Africa and the Middle East, which means things aren't going to go well. Because when you take people from societies that are very archaic in their belief systems, that have no concepts of, or at least very little concepts of human rights, ethics, morality, all that kind of stuff, things don't turn out very well. And that's what we're seeing in Canada. And I mean, to be honest, it's already a good argument that you could point out that Canada may already be too far gone when it comes to the immigration issue, and that we may have already brought in too many people. But long story short, we need to be pushing back against this kind of stuff because it's big issues. And I mean, especially the Wexit people too. Like, we got to be pushing back against this kind of stuff hard. And like, everybody needs to be pushing back against it. But if you want to solidify your movement, then you have to be pushing back against the right stuff and not focusing your time on stuff that doesn't matter, focusing your time on the stuff that really matters. And this is one of the biggest issues, because this issue is tied into so many issues too. Like, it's tied in with the carbon tax, it's tied in with the economy very tightly, because a lot of the jobs that are being regulated out of business or completely shut down are ones that have to do with this. So this is something that affects every aspect of our life. And that's the other thing I really can't stand about people, is that they really only get involved in politics when it directly affects them. But what they don't realize is that everything, when it comes to politics, either directly or indirectly affects you, or at least pretty much everything. So staying silent on stuff, it's really, really annoying, and it's not getting you anywhere either. Like, personally, and I think what most people do is that if you're quiet on an issue, people just assume that you agree with whatever the majority position is. And to be perfectly honest, I think that's a just way of doing things, because if you disagree, well, make your voice heard, because if not, well, then it's your own fault. And like, personally, I don't completely disagree with that. Now, if you're gonna take someone, accuse them of being a Nazi or a communist, then I think that's different. But when it comes to something like climate change, like, if you're not voicing your opinion and saying, hey, I think it's gone a little too far, at the very least, be like, yeah, I believe in climate change, but a carbon tax doesn't work. Well, I mean, at least I can respect you for that. Like, that's a hell of a lot better than the average person, because the average person, you just assume that they believe whatever the majority position is, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that, because if you disagree, we'll speak up. And that's what more people need to do nowadays. I think the time for staying silent, I think, is gone, in that we're really at a tipping point in society now. I think the next about 10 years or so is going to be very, very key, because I think we're at a tipping point in that we may have enough time to turn things back, and if not, then we're going to be in for some bad times. So anyway, if you liked the video, make sure to hit that like and subscribe, and stay tuned for more.